Hello, everyone, and welcome to another special type episode of The Backlog. I am Dan. I am joined by Joe.
Hey, Dan.
Hey.
I'm here joining you on this very,
You are here-
this very special episode.
This very special one. We're all going to learn a valuable lesson and maybe grow apart for a brief bit and then grow back together.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a heartfelt story of how performance-enhancing drugs and wooden pallets will get you through the apocalypse.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
What are we talking about, Dan?
We're talking about The Last of Us. Or rather, you're going to be talking primarily, and I'm going to throw in the input of the things that I remember because it's been 2-3 years since I've played this game. We both played the PS4 remastered edition.
We both played PS4 remastered.
And you are a mere...
It came out on PS3, though.
It did.
So it was one of the earliest remasters for PS4.
It was. And it was when people were like, I hope this isn't a thing. And then that totally became a thing because it sold gangbusters.
It did, yeah. And people really like this game.
People really like it.
I remember tons of buzz for game of the year. And when I got my hands on it, I bounced off immediately.
I say, let's before we get that, like,
I thought we were just getting into it.
Mild trigger warning here. We have some opinions because I'm a curmudgeon-y jackass, and I don't exactly like much, but that's a thing. And then Joe is coming to this late to the party.
Yeah, I'm really mixed as far as how I feel about it. There are some stuff that I ended up liking.
And I liked some stuff out of this as well.
Yes, and I overall ended up liking the game more than I expected I would after my initial kind of bounce off.
And me talking kind of smack about it for a while.
Sure, and that kind of made me curious and maybe gave me the oomph to actually like sit down and be like, okay, what is this game? Why is it? What is it about it that's divisive or it could be interesting?
I was admittedly saying you need to see the end of this game because I have thoughts about the end of this game.
And I'm like, okay, interesting. Well, yeah. So for you to have some like feelings about it, I was like, okay, interesting. Maybe I'll see what it's got. I'll see what it's got going on because like I didn't have a lot of interest jumping back into it after so long.
And it's so rare for me to have feelings about anything.
I mean, the cynicism is typically rampant.
It is strong. So let's just throw this out. The one thing I know we both agree on: the game looks beautiful.
Yeah, surprisingly good, especially it coming to PS4 from the PS3.
Right. They took the work.
There's some datedness to it. Obviously, the way the game is designed, it's very PS3, and there's only like 4 different models of cars. Like your almost Honda Civic hatchback,
reusing
from the 90s
assets because they didn't have disk space.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Like it's cool. It's kind of got a weird nostalgia to it. But it looks way shinier with the remaster. The HD remaster is actually really good on it.
When they didn't know how to completely bring up textures, so like good textures just look shiny.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, it looks pretty good. I don't know. Should we just start at the beginning?
Yeah. Let's set it up.
Okay.
We've got 3 basic things that we're going to go through. We're going to go setting, gameplay, story. So if you're looking for the story, sorry, bro, it's at the end.
It's at the end.
So let's start at the beginning of the setting.
We're going to talk about the more technical aspects of video gaminess here.
Don't promise what you can't deliver.
It's true. It's not that technical.
Right. So I think it's worth starting at the very beginning because that intro is effective. Just having you play as Joel's daughter. Yeah.
And this is the apocalypse here kicking off.
It's happening, right? And they do very good at, like, you're the daughter wandering around the house. Everything's fine. Nothing has kicked off yet.
Yeah. I mean, it starts off with, like, you getting home. You play as Joel.
I thought you played as daughter in the intro.
You don't play as... Like, it starts out with you... It starts out with Joel getting home.
Oh, right.
And the daughter, Sarah, is on the couch, and you go over and you have this, like... father-daughter connection moment.
Okay.
Where like it's just kind of like, oh
she gets you a watch for your birthday.
Yeah, she gets you a birthday present. It's very cute, and
you're like, okay, he's a working dad. Mom's gone, and I'll
struggling to pay the rent. All that.
I will admit,
it's very like.
You see where
Americana.
You see where this is going though, because it's cute and twee enough that knowing what this game is, you know where it's going to go, and you're like, okay, I'm okay with you doing this. But it's good enough that it doesn't feel cheap, but I still feel I know what you're going to do with this.
It's a bit ham-fisted, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
It is. So it very quickly just opens up with you wake up playing as Sarah, the daughter, and you don't know where your dad is.
Right.
Like,
middle of the night,
things seem weird. You get a really, disturbing call from your uncle.
And you can wander around the house aimlessly for a bit.
Yeah, you can. But yeah, and it's all very slow, very cinematic. That's one thing this game really pushes is that cinematic angle.
Uh-huh.
And and it has you very slowly wandering around, rubbing your sleepy eyes, trying to find your dad. And eventually you wander in his room. He's not there. You go downstairs. You find his cell phone. It's got like 8 missed calls. Something's going down.
Yeah.
As you're turning around, you see.
I think the music's getting more and more tense. I
think.
A
little bit. They use that quite a bit in the game. Lots of musical sound tension. Good soundtrack for the most part. It plays to what they're trying to build.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that whole thing, and you just realize like, oh no, something's going down, and you stumble into the office, and your dad shows up.
Yeah.
Covered in blood. Covered in blood, and then one of your neighbors comes crashing through your sliding glass door, and your dad shoots him a lot.
And you're like, okay, things have gone real bad. And then bam, kick off the apocalypse. You're like trying to escape. Yeah, you're fleeing the city for no reason that you're aware of.
Well, you're catching glimpses of it on like the TV, and the news is playing like, oh, something's going down. Like,
it's your standard zombie apocalypse trope.
It is very much.
Let's say like they do the thing of taking the step being it's zombie non-zombies.
Yeah,
but for the means of this discussion, they're zombies.
Sure. Yeah. It's their own take on it. Whatever. It's a fungus instead of it's the cordyceps fungus. If you're familiar with it, it's real.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an actual fungus that takes over insects.
Oh, okay.
And actually does zombify them, and like the fungus will then drive the bugs around.
Oh,
it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's in this case it is mutated to the point where it can control humans.
Gotcha.
So. And that's the twist.
And
that's the twist.
Turn them into clickers.
Yeah, clickers, stalkers.
Your typical post-apocalyptic
your zombie trope things, except it's a little different in that like clickers are blind and only react. Anyway, yeah, but we'll get into that.
You can shiv all of them.
Yeah, you can shiv. You can only shiv them.
Yeah,
you can't melee them. That was an unfortunate.
We're skipping ahead to gameplay.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So you're escaping, and you meet up with your uncle, and it's all like
you're running away.
And
at that point, it's just kind of meh.
It's chaos. You're kind of going through. You're like, it's very effective though. Like you're just this little girl in the back of this Jeep or whatever you're in.
Yeah.
And all you can do is kind of look out the window while the narrative is going on.
Right.
And it's pretty effective. You're like
you get the feel for what's happening very quickly.
Like suddenly like neighbors' houses are suddenly on fire and people are like stranded on the side of the road, but you don't really know what's going on, so you just gotta keep blowing by everybody. You get to town and everything is just even more insane. Traffic is backed up all the way out, so you can't get out of town. The army is there trying to like maintain some kind of order, at least so it appears.
Right.
And so you're like, okay, we're just going to ditch this like traffic jam and get off the side of the road.
Yeah.
And so you get out of you end up like going down the side road, wrecking your vehicle, you roll.
Right. As typical apocalypse, no one can drive properly.
No one can drive. Well, and there's a lot of people. There's like tons of people in the streets they're running away from whatever. And you don't really see much, and it's just chaos. And they're very good at like, hey, this is just absolute pandemonium.
These are the guys who did Uncharted. They can set up a set piece.
Never played Uncharted,
but they can set up a set piece.
Yeah, I've seen some gameplay.
You're usually running through and shooting at all the people in these sequences, but they can set up
pretty effective. Yeah. And anyway, you kind of like are able to break out of the crowd and get off to the side, kind of getting down a hill where you get stopped by a soldier.
Right. Just one soldier
on
his own.
And he radios back like, hey, like got a little girl here, blah blah blah. He gets bad news obviously over the radio.
Right, because this is the kind of game it is.
Yeah, it's the kind of game, and they got to set this whole thing up. Your tragic backstory obviously.
Right.
And he starts shooting, and as you try and dodge away, the daughter gets hit. She gets shot in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, like Uncle shows up, he kills the soldier, and then you just sit there holding your daughter as she dies.
And then was that the title card at that point?
Title card.
A late title card.
Late title card.
I wonder. I sometimes wonder if that would have been more effective if you actually just run away, title card, and then when you come back, you're like, "Where's your daughter?" You're always wondering where the daughter is, and the story's basically, "Yeah, she's gone. She died a long time ago." If that wouldn't have been more effective.
And like what? Like show that all in a flashback later? I think
no. I mean, no. You never address it because he refuses to talk about it.
It's true. He is very staunchly like will not talk about it throughout.
Like
most of the game.
You know, it was a long time ago. You know, it went bad. You know, he refuses to talk about it. That's all you need. You don't.
Maybe if you played as a different character,
it felt
around Joel instead of playing as Joel.
Yeah.
But since you play as Joel for most of the game,
I don't know. It just like you said, it felt a little ham-fisted. It's that extra kind of. And that extra hit that you know is coming.
It's kind of like a realization or I don't know, a Zen place that I had to come to. Like, this game's just a huge Walking Dead trope.
Yeah.
Like many aspects of it.
It should be noted, I think when this game came out, the Walking Dead series was
the TV series
was
I don't
just
know.
started
Yeah.
or was not very deep in, but the comic series
have been out for a while,
for forever.
Yeah, comics are pretty widely
and
known.
the zombie
and zombie tropes in general have been around for a long time.
It was kind of.
And I'm being a bit reductive by calling it all Walking Dead. I know,
but at this point, it's a shorthand that people understand.
It is a shorthand that a lot of people are familiar with and will understand that I'm talking about, because a lot of these tropes were kind of in other things. Most zombie cinema stuff has all been pretty cheesy. Walking Dead was the first time it ever got treated too seriously, in my opinion. I don't think the Romero stuff was that good, but this was a more like true to life and like, hey, these are circumstances that people might actually get into.
Or at least true enough to life.
True enough to life.
Let's say that.
I'm sure. I mean, again, it's hyperbole. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So very early on, I kind of had to like come to Jesus and just be like, okay, like this is just a bunch of tropes that are just getting stuck together.
And here's the thing is, like we'll say,
and I'm not saying that tropes are a bad thing.
Right. I was going to say, as an example, Mass Effect, the first one, I love that game. That game it feels like it's a lot of tropes that have been rehashed over and over and over again. And it wasn't the tropes that are like, the tropes don't make it unenjoyable because you're like, I want to see how they do these tropes. You go, oh, okay, this is an interesting take on these things that you've seen, but like it didn't feel new or fresh in what they were doing, but how they were doing it is what made it interesting. That's why I was saying, I wonder if it would have been more interesting to just be like, yeah, she's dead. No, I'm not going to talk about it. Because you don't need, here's the thing is, for his character, you didn't need to see that to know what that would have done to him with everything you had leading up to that.
Well, and the way he reacts to everything at that later point in time.
Exactly.
Well. Like, I don't think it was a problem, though, show that.
Not a problem.
I think the intro was fine.
Here's the thing is, I have a problem when they do that in games and movies because it almost, I don't want to say unearned. I don't have a good way of saying what I'm feeling here, but it's like the daughter only exists to die in the intro.
Okay, and?
I'm just saying, and if you did something where, no, she actually survived some way into the apocalypse, it's at least slightly subverting the trope.
Yeah, but then why would that be exciting? Like, why would that make it better?
It'd just be interesting to see it be done differently.
Just be done differently.
But like, you know that because here's the thing is, because it's almost like it's like, okay, here's the rise in the techno song, but then the drop happens after the song ends. It would mess with you a little bit.
I mean, because
you expect that hammer to drop.
But in this case, the game's not about that.
I know.
Yeah,
I understand. This is my
so ancillary. You're just kind of like,
this is my headcanon or the fanfics.
It's like it's just to build up Joel's backstory. It's not about the daughter.
And that's why I wanted to see something different because it only exists to do that, and to slightly subvert it would be okay, maybe I'm not playing something that's just totally tropey, or just subverting it just enough that it feels different.
It is tropey, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, tropes exist because people are comfortable with them. They are tried and true things in storytelling, and we see them over and over. And when we get a little bit of a twist on it, like, that's exciting. But I think we did come to this after the fact in a lot of ways.
And I want to say, like, this whole thing isn't going to be me saying, I wish they'd done it this way. So,
and I didn't think,
but that was one thing I was thinking about as how would that have changed that feeling, as opposed to like that's right, you're gonna watch this girl bleed out. Yeah, it sucks, huh? You're feeling emotions, aren't you? It's because it's emotional.
Feel it. But I thought it was effective.
It was.
I think they did it pretty well.
I guess I also get kind of pissed off when I feel manipulated into that.
I mean,
and I didn't feel necessarily.
Okay,
I'm saying in other things.
And to me, I felt like they were setting a tone.
That's a way I should look at it more often.
Yeah, I think they were just setting a tone
instead of just being like,
because of how tropey it is and just how telegraphed that entire sequence was.
Yeah,
like it literally was just like, hey, we're gonna set the tone for this whole thing, and we need you to understand like what we're doing here. It's gonna be a very cinematic experience. It's more narrative than game. It's almost it's more walking simulator than zombie shooter.
Well, I would say, if they made this into a walking simulator, how much different would the effect be?
Maybe better in some cases.
I didn't want to say that, but
maybe better in some cases.
That's what you said.
Oh no, that's what I thought about it. Honestly, I was like, there were aspects of this game where I'm playing through, and I was like, I wish this was just like a walking simulator.
Right.
I wish I didn't have to do this dumb thing that they
Which-
have had me do. We'll get into
No.
it. We'll get into it
Stop,
a little
stop,
bit.
no. I'm segueing. I was going to say that I think we're
Well,
done with everything else. I think this is the perfect segue into the gameplay.
All right.
Unless you had, we've said it's tropey.
It is tropey.
Anything
Okay, I'll get off that horse then.
I mean,
that's
is there
fair
anything-
enough.
do you-
That's a decent enough.
I would
that's
say,
a decent enough
unless there's
segue.
something specific you want to call out in the setting.
No, not really.
Okay. Let's talk about it. If this was then gameplay,
the next part of the setting,
Okay.
I should say, because what we
jump forward 20 years.
we jump forward 20 years, and that's kind of a big. But we just barely talked about how they set up this one character, but then we're just gonna skip that. Oh yeah, they jumped 20 years into the future, because you're at the very inception of this whole apocalypse,
right?
And then they immediately jump 20 years in the future, which I find works. It works pretty well. It immediately drops you into a government camp.
Yeah.
That you are in a very regimented, clearly society,
right?
Where you're dealing with ration cars.
It's basically
soldiers.
communism.
It is. It's very totalitarian.
It's communism. Everybody's starving and it sucks.
You're either a soldier or you're getting crapped on by the law.
Yeah.
It's kind of how it is, and you find that
you're in the ruins of Boston.
Yeah, you're starting off in the ruins of Boston, and it's these very razor wire
very
fences,
authoritarian.
the works. You've got it all, and you are part of the underground. You're a smuggler, working with your partner, and you're pretty well known. As you're wandering through Boston, and
which is just what you want to be as a
running
smuggler.
Errands, yeah. Well, I mean, among the seedier
yeah.
people that you're working with,
the people you work with know you.
It seems like the people that you run into, they know who you are, and they're like, "Ooh, we don't really want to mess with you guys.
Right.
You guys are kind of tough."
Right.
You're avoiding soldiers obviously because you don't want to get shot, but
which is it's an interesting thing because as they go through, they allude back to a lot of what happened over that 20 years.
Yes,
and it's funny because
they talk about a lot of history between you and
your brother, the gal,
brother,
the other smugglers.
Yeah, smuggler, the Fireflies, the rebel group that's out there
trying to restore order or fix things
or just fight the soldiers in some cases.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I've heard these rules to writing that you hear. They say, okay, your main character, is this the most interesting part of their life? And if not, why aren't you writing about that?
Yeah.
And that's a thought I had. I think it's interesting.
It could be.
But here's the thing.
It could be.
For the sake of this game, I do think it works to where they set it. Though a game that is...
Well, you're much older. I mean, it's 20 years later.
Right, I'm saying, but
you're
I'm saying,
a much older Joel, a much more grizzled and bitter human being.
And as they call back...
one would be 20 years into the apocalypse.
Right, and as they call back to that stuff, it kind of works not knowing that. But there's a part of me that's like, wow, I wish I was playing the game that had all that.
Hey, see, none of that bothered me.
No, it didn't bother me. Yeah. But all I was saying is, I wish I was playing the game that had all that.
Maybe.
Basically, then I played Metro and I was fine.
Okay. Well, they're good. At least you got your fix. But again, this is not that kind of game.
No, it's not.
And it very immediately is just like,
hey,
we're not that game.
Nor do I want it to be that game.
Yeah, super immediately. They just immediately throw you into kind of what you're going to do for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
as
very
far
quick.
As
the loop
goes.
is very quick.
The loop is fast. It is quick. It
crawl,
is
loot,
so simple.
Bludgeon, hide.
Yeah, it was the most disheartening part of having to play through this.
They also had a multiplayer mode that's just that.
Doesn't control great. Does not control.
It's methodical. But not in the good way.
It is methodical. It is very repetitive. It's very... it's not super rewarding. There were very few times. As I started to actually level up some of the skills with different weapons, things felt a little bit better, but it never, ever felt super great. See, it's like you have... when you're shooting, initially tons of sway on it. If you're moving, it's super inaccurate. It's not... The guns are not powerful enough to feel rewarding.
Gotcha.
It takes way too much ammo to put anything down.
That's kind of a Naughty Dog standard. The first Uncharted, one of the big things is everything's a sponge. You could shoot a guy in the head 3 times and he's maybe dead.
You see, it's not that bad. If you can get a good headshot, you'll put down most guys as long as they don't have armor.
It's not this game. That's not the kind of game it was. But
it's not a shooter. It's really not a shooter.
But that's something that's always been a complaint of Naughty Dog's is kind of takes a lot of shots to kill most things.
Yeah, but it's also just not rewarding.
No.
And
it's stealth kill the video game.
It is stealth. It's just they really push for the stealth, but the stealth is not not good.
I remember a lot of checkpoint reloading as I'm trying to figure the optimum path to shanking and getting through.
It was really disappointing as a guy who really likes stealth games. Huge fan of Metal Gear. Think they have a really tight stealth system in that. In this, there's no way, they don't really ever tell you what is going to get you caught.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like
it's not Mark of the Ninja.
It's not Mark of the Ninja by any means. Not nearly that tight. I mean, I wouldn't even compare the two in any realm.
No.
Except that they really push for you to do a lot of stealth, and by the amount of bottles and bricks on the ground, I guess they just want you to be throwing bricks and bottles to lure guys away.
To be clear, you were playing on easy because I had kind of
you were pushing to get this done quick, so I just jumped on easy, and so I may not have
I played on normal
grasp of what what their intended quote unquote difficulty would be.
I would say I played on normal and never felt like I was without bottles and bricks also. So
okay,
but I mean,
I didn't look into it enough to know like what the difference between difficulties.
I think resources was an issue on the higher difficulties.
I mean, even on easy, I didn't have like unlimited anything.
Right.
Like it was always like I scavenged pretty thoroughly to make sure I had the stuff that I wanted to use.
That's how you play games,
and it's how I play. Yeah. I was not going to miss out on stuff that was easily attainable. I didn't max out everything. I maxed out a couple of the
things
guns
you liked.
I liked. I didn't bother like worrying about most things. I didn't even get all the tools to upgrade things to max. So
yeah,
I missed a lot of stuff in the game. I did not try and play this as thoroughly as I normally would, and I'm kind of okay with it. Like in hindsight, I'm looking at it like, it's not rewarding enough to. It's kind of like if I really wanted to get into that, I don't know. It seems like they reward more of you searching for story pieces than actually gameplay,
right? Because
the gameplay is secondary in that game.
Yeah, which is weird.
They push the narrative way harder
because there's so much gameplay.
They make you do a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say there's so much gameplay.
That's what I'm saying.
There's like 4 things.
There's like we need you to go this 300 yards, but there's also 200 yards of vertical up and down climbing to get.
Not to mention getting almost there and then having to backtrack again to get through it. They did that a lot. They used very small spaces to
they extended the
excessive
gameplay
effect,
but I think they stretched the gameplay farther than it should have been.
Yeah.
I think
getting from A to B took you like going through maze after maze of
being a PS3 game.
Broken stuff.
They still expected you to play an Uncharted game. You're looking at anywhere from 8 to 12 hours worth of gameplay, and it felt like they had a 6-hour game that they put 12. They stretched it.
They
stretched it.
Yeah, and at times it felt fine when the enemy placement and type was varied appropriately. It felt okay. There were definitely some of the zombie sections that felt very just kind of like, well, we need to slow you down from getting to this like other side of this gate. So
right.
You're going to have to do a half mile through a bunch of zombies that are above your pay grade. So you're just going to have to like figure it out and get through that.
There's like you could burn all your resources, and that's going to get you like 30 feet in, and now you're out
to the generator, so you can open the gate.
Right. Well, I'm saying like they'll make sure that you know that if you burned all of everything you had, you'd still only get about 10 feet in, and you're not, and that's just not how you're going to get it.
Yeah, and so they're very ham-fisted in that they're like they really want to hammer you into that stealth mode. Like you can't fight your way through most things. Most encounters in that game are made to be stealth,
but also it's like correct me if I'm wrong,
to an extent, to a point.
But there's certain zones where you're like, okay, I'm in the clear, and then you just totally get caught for no reason that you can expect.
It's another beef I have with this game.
Okay, I remember that.
So
but
they give you that detective mode where you can focus your listening and hear and see things that are nearby, and then annoyingly they still force you into these bottlenecks where you have to open a door where a thing is just going to jump scare.
And take health, and
take out your health, and you have to do a quick time event to get out of it. And they did it far too often. It was very cheap, and times where you totally should have been able to see enemies on the other side.
Right,
you should have been able to like.
It's a magic unfocusable wall.
Yeah, and it was really annoying. It's like, hey, you gave me this power, but you don't weird.
You've established the rules of the universe. Please follow the rules of the universe.
Instead, they just keep breaking it, and that was really annoying. I was always super irritated whenever they would force me in, and that was also part of the. I don't know if I'd even call it part of the story or narrative. When they would force you into those circumstances, those bottlenecks, it didn't serve purpose many times.
No.
Like, it was just kind of like jump scare,
gameplay for gameplay's sake, or jump scare for jump scare's sake.
And it was more jump scare than anything. It was like, oh, bam, here's dudes just coming at you, like, or here's a zombie, he's just on you, and it was irritating. And it took me out of the game, honestly, because I knew I would get up to, like, I would be engrossed in the game and enjoying, scavenging and like finding these story bits of like notes or whatever, and then suddenly I can't see what's on the other side of this wall, and I was like,
there's something
I know exactly what's on the other side of this wall now,
right? And
I have to go through this one door, and I know exactly what's going to happen, and every time it happened, like, something pops out, somebody jumps out at you. And it was kind of disappointing.
Like, it was a cue that, hey, story beat.
Yeah, it was like, oh, yeah, you're playing a video game. Like, remember, we're going to funnel you to this one spot and force you into this one.
Where if it was just, let's say, let's play devil's advocate, if it was a walking simulator, that wouldn't be an issue, and you'd just be seamlessly walking through, finding the relics of all these people that were here before you.
Yeah, and enjoying those story bits. And I definitely wouldn't enjoy that, honestly. I just don't like walking simulators, and story for story's sake doesn't do much for me. But those kinds of things in that game really took me out of the game, and out of the story.
Okay,
I felt that it interrupted the flow of the game, because you're wandering through these like beautiful ruins, like, very well crafted, and the scavenging is fun. The ambiance is like haunting, and you never know when you're gonna like get to a certain point where it triggers some, like, that was always far more effective. Suddenly you would hear something in the distance and you're like, oh no, something happened, and you would either trigger like more guys coming in to attack you,
right,
or you like open up a new area where there's a bunch of zombies.
Okay.
And rather than having like one just suddenly just jump in your face and start trying to eat you, like, just knowing that tension was there, like, you're going into this encounter,
right?
And
there's something over there.
You suddenly have to be super careful, and that was far more effective than the jump scares. And it kept me engrossed in the game rather than taking me out of it, because this is just a mechanic,
right? You see mechanically where you can see the seams.
You see the seams, absolutely.
Huh?
Excuse me.
No, that's.
But yeah, I mean. So there were aspects of it I liked. Most of the gameplay, hated. Big part of that, I mean, let's
actually talk puzzle solving.
Okay.
Because we're talking traversing these environments. I did find it a little frustrating being like, oh, hey, look, here's a floaty thing. You stand there, I'll walk in, waist deep water, and I'll ferry you across
the magical. Okay, yeah.
And then also, I have to kick down the ladder and all this stuff. When they're setting up Ellie as this character who is grown up in this. She's street smart. She knows what's going on.
And if you haven't played the game, Ellie is your youthful ward that was given to you back
14,
in Boston.
15, something like that.
Yeah, young teen,
young enough to be we'll get into that. She's sassy,
who is immune to the spores. So you are on a smuggling run for the Fireflies to
cross country
to get her to another group of Fireflies who are scientists who are going to reverse engineer a cure from her. And you're supposed to protect her and deliver her to the other Fireflies in exchange for a bunch of guns.
So you can continue smuggling and living that smuggler life.
Yeah.
Right, but here's the thing is, like, for me, talking about taking you out of the game narratively, it's one of those
Everybody
things,
loves escort missions, Dan.
Yeah.
Escort mission the game.
It would have been much more effective if maybe they had, like, if I don't know, you'd think Ellie is someone who grew up in this world. Later on, they show her absolutely able to survive in this world somewhat on her own. The fact that you have to ferry her around on boxes, like...
that's always a huge part. And, okay,
what I'm saying, wouldn't she just jump in the water and be like, what are we doing? Let's go.
You would think so. Because if she grew up in
this...
They make it a point of that story very early on. Early and far too often. That, hey, Joel, I can't swim. Hey, Joel, I can't swim.
Right, so
hey,
it's like,
Joel,
hey,
I can't swim.
Guess what? This trip has got to work.
Hey, Dan, I can't swim.
Right. Well, it's one of those things like, guess what? You're learning to swim. Get in here. And even if you have to help her across the water, that's something you can do.
Now, to its credit, eventually, they seem to recognize that they do just slam on that I can't swim thing, and they start joking about it later in the game.
Okay, I don't know if I hit that point because I was just... It was just depressing. You see a section that's clearly a puzzle section, and you're like... Well, I'm just gonna not play this right now. I'll come back to it.
As soon as you see that there's a ladder stuck up on a thing or a generator where
you see
you
pool
can't
of water
get to it and there's water, it's the exact same puzzle. And that's the loop of this game. You traverse a maze find a wooden pallet that somehow floats and carries a small child.
Right.
And then you push that child over to a generator or a ledge that she can jump onto, where then she can drop this ladder or a plank or whatever to allow you to then traverse this area. It really... I understand that they do it for pacing's sake, but it really...
But it takes you in like, I am in a video game.
It immediately takes you out.
I am in a video
It
game.
immediately takes you out every single time.
And it's tiring.
And
it
is. And
mentally
the controls,
fatiguing.
And the controls are terrible. This is part of this whole like control in this game. And not just the movement aspect of it. It's really awkward because they do have you pull and push things around to stand on quite a bit as well.
Right.
And it just doesn't ever feel good. And they also have collision.
Yeah.
Which is my other biggest beef about this freaking game.
Where's the beef? It's in the collision?
It's in the collision.
All right.
So you collide with everything. Corpses, Ellie, and they will prevent you from dodging attacks.
Right.
And I died.
And Ellie is invisible to everyone in the world.
Your companion people are invisible to everything.
But will stop you from getting away from
things. But will stop you from dodging. And it infuriated me. Even on easy. It was just so dumb. Like suddenly like, oh, I'm trying to like dodge back, but oh, guess what? Ellie's in the way. Clicker just ate my face.
Right. I'll admit I don't remember any of that happening too much to me. So I'm not
and it may have just been the way I was playing, I don't know, but constantly every time I would try and turn around and it was in a tighter space, she was there because you're escorting her. Mm-hmm. And if it's in a doorway or a tight hallway behind a bar, suddenly you can't get out.
Yeah.
And you got dudes all around shooting at you, and oh man, I about threw a control once or twice. Like, because I'm just like, this game, man, like
again, these are the guys who made Uncharted, so you'd think they would understand.
Maybe, I don't know.
The flow
I
of
don't have that basis for comparison. Sadly, I'll have to play an Uncharted.
Well,
game.
I have the Uncharted collection.
We'll have to get into that.
We'll have to get into that.
But yeah, like as far as gameplay goes, it feels like there were just some weird things that they should have fixed or should have recognized early on. And collision with your own NPC people is not good in most games.
Right.
I can't think of an example where it is good.
But it'll break it'll
break
take you
the
out.
immersion.
It'll break the immersion if you don't bump into them. But it
was more just infuriating.
It's worth it if you break a couple
took away from the already
controllers.
poor gameplay and made it even more infuriating.
Right.
Like especially when you limited use on your melee weapons and you have such limited resources, and then to have to waste them because you can't get past the little girl you're escorting.
Right, I know.
Like it's just like, oh man, where I could easily just dodge behind a wall, hide, grab a dude and strangle him.
Yeah.
I would instead have to turn around and waste my one-shot kill mods on my weapons, and that was always unfortunate.
Right. Especially so let's talk about resources then on that.
Yeah, resources are important, even on easy.
How did you feel about that?
I felt that it was good. I think it was a good thing that made me a little bit more immersed in the world, and it led me
thinking about what you were doing.
Yeah, I thought about when I was going to use certain items. I thought about how to manage those things, and when
is this SOB worth me shanking him, or can I get around him without it?
Can I use a shank, because I might need that shank to get into a door at some point that has a lot of good stuff behind it, and so. And I think because I was on easy, I must have more resources. I never felt too wanting, especially later in the game. Early on, I definitely ran out of certain stuff.
Yeah, I want to feel like I want to say I felt like that I was running low on the stuff I really like to use. So it's like, okay, special occasion, I'm going to switch over to this kind of thing. But I was never completely out of options.
Like I really enjoyed the bow. Really enjoyed playing with the bow. I thought it was fantastic. Silent kills, my favorite. And once you power it up, it's a sniper rifle from any distance.
Wow.
Except on guys that had helmets. That was like, if they had armor, it was always rough. But
which is always the thing that you're playing a video game. It's like, no, they have helmets.
Yeah. That didn't really take me out as much though, because I actually felt that it worked in that space.
I mean,
to an extent.
I don't exactly recall exactly how they did it. I remember at some point going like, of course they have helmets because video games.
Well, I mean, if you still hit them in the face, they would still die, like with a headshot. But if it wasn't like real on point, like it would just knock the helmet off. They would stagger and whatnot, like getting shot in the head would. But that was all fine. And most of the weapons didn't feel good. Most of them did not feel good.
Okay.
The shooting was not great, not fun, and not rewarding enough until you leveled stuff up to have higher power or armor piercing.
I can't help but feel that was an intentional decision because, again, these guys made the Uncharted games. They're third-person shooter, cover-based action games.
But that seems to go not coincide with their limited resources. If you're gonna have limited resources,
no, I'm saying I think they chose to make it like, no, this is clearly not Uncharted. Don't think this is Uncharted.
Right, but if they had made the resources as limited, but then made the shooting
good,
powerful, and rewarding, when you had to expend those limited resources,
right,
then it would have been great.
Because you could argue Joel has been doing this for 20 plus years.
I mean, dude, Shanks guys like I have never seen before.
Right, like I say, but he would have the experience and the talent to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
So you couldn't argue. Sometimes they're like, well, narratively, if you explore it, he really isn't very that experienced, so of course he'd be bad with guns. It's like, that doesn't fly in this one.
No, it absolutely doesn't, especially because you've been doing this for a long time and you run guns like you're a gun dude.
Stuff has gone sideways on you consistently for 20 years.
You can literally pick up anything. I just realized this thinking about it. There was a weapon I did not use once.
Oh yeah, what was that?
The flamethrower.
I don't remember there being there's a flamethrower.
There's a flamethrower.
Huh.
And it's kind of a cool looking flamethrower. It's like cobbled together with weird pipes and stuff.
I
ended up never using it.
Huh.
I just realized that. I was like, oh yeah, I never fired that thing once.
Well, maybe we'll have you load up a save.
Maybe I'll load up a save and get some footage of me playing with a flamethrower. But I just never wanted to. It's so punishes you for having to fire a weapon,
right?
As soon as you
sound
is such a big deal, and you alert
clickers
10 guys,
and
you're done. Like you can't get out of some of those situations if you aggro enough dudes at once.
Yeah,
it's so punishing. So it was always just easier and faster for me to go through and stealth and just strangle everyone I could, and then distract anything that was like a clicker.
Right.
If I distracted stuff, I could just walk right by. No big deal.
Yeah.
Even the big fat guy, the bloaters that threw the weird spore pods at you. I only killed the one that they force you to kill.
Because
and then I just avoided every single one.
Yeah.
And
we're back into that where it's a forced stealth sections.
It very well, yes, but it was effective. It worked. I felt fine that I didn't have to kill those guys. I didn't want to. It's annoying. They're bullet spongy, more than everything else in that game.
Right. It's an interesting design choice to basically kind of force you down to stealth because everything else feels so bad you don't want to engage with it.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm being a bit too haterade on this whole thing.
You think so?
I feel like it. I feel like I'm being a little too negative because I ended up enjoying this game a lot more. And it's probably because the story redeemed it for me quite a bit, even though every bit of it's pretty tropey.
Before we get to the story, though.
Okay.
I mean, we were.
You have one more thing?
We were kind of talking about the combat, and I guess this is our segue section because in the combat, I later on in the game, I felt, I don't know, it pulled me out because when it gets wave based, there's towards the end,
way at the end, yeah.
Yeah, there's a part where you're fighting waves of this gang, and at some point I'm like, I've killed 30 guys. In the setting and the narrative setting that they've established, who is still coming to kill me? Who wants to put their life on the line when all of their friends are dead and there's 15 of them left? And they're like, he's killed 30. What are the odds he can get 15 more?
Is this the one where you're in Colorado?
I think so.
Okay.
You're in some facility or something.
The university.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, the university.
Like I said, it's been years.
The University of Eastern Colorado.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but at a point I was just it just went on way too long, and I was just like, who is willing to come in and try this when they know all of their buddies in here are dead? I've booby trapped the place. I'm just mowing down anybody who steps inside, and I think it was partially effective because I'm furious that I have to expend so much of my resources.
Yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, it took me out of it because I'm like, these people would not be doing this if they're the way they've established the way the kind of there's enough every man for himself out there that's like these guys are gonna be like, yeah, you want him dead, you go in there. I'm just fine leaving him alone.
Yeah,
and I was just like, there's weird I don't want to say narrative breaks, but narrative slips there where you're like, for a service of gameplay, here's 35 people.
So one thing about the combat with humans, with the actual humans, like the other people trying to survive in this apocalypse, you get a lot of story and or situational stuff from a lot of this stuff is and in the college even like
Yeah.
each of these waves have, I don't know how much you just like kind of hung back and kind of like mapped it out how you were going to kill. Like that's kind of, I was very methodical about how I would go through and do this. So I ended up catching a lot of their banter, like when they would talk to each other about whatever and about you and about what you're doing there, why they were there.
Okay.
Namely in the stuff like the hotel in Pittsburgh. It's them just kind of doing like you have these NPCs, these enemies that are just doing their normal patrol of the hotel, trying to clear out any zombies that might be cropping up, and you start to hear just like kind of standard talk, like dudes talking to each other about going to get food and snacks and whatever, and and how to handle parts of it. Obviously, like they see you, they're gonna kill you, but like you end up picking up bits, and even in the university, I remember like you start to hear like, oh yeah, like they started to talk about you as this like I don't know, this Baba Yaga, this like
are you
this
legend
boogeyman? Yeah, you're basically Keanu Reeves just wrecking dudes, and
that's kind of how I play. I see. The funny thing is that's kind of how I played the game. Was I was the like the cornered wild animal. You step in here, we're done. And I wasn't being methodical. I will murder fools as they cross my path. Don't cross my path. Yeah, I would sit and I would watch a little bit. I would do the detective mode, and I'd watch and see which ones are padding where. Yeah. And if one got like, it was very much the like predator prey situation. If somebody got a little too far outside of the herd, you're the weak one.
I just drop them, bam, and then that would start the chain. They would see that body, and then they'd come and investigate that body. Though sadly, another beef with the gameplay. That AI was so easy to break. So easy to break. You just immediately kind of intuit how they are going to react to everything. Even if they see a body, for whatever reason, like the first one will go to the body and look at it. Yeah. If you then kill another one from that, they immediately know that you are where you killed them from. Yeah. So all you have to do is like hop over a wall, just duck around a corner, and they will come to where you were. Yeah. And you just shank them there, or kill them there, or just
set up the spot where you can get.
It's very easy to just chain an entire group of guys. So I never felt that any of the wave-based combat was even that wave-based because it was so manipulatable.
Okay. See, again,
externally,
I guess I played the game wrong because I did not take the time to do that.
But that's what I do. Yeah. It's why I play Halo Legendary. I like to figure out how to break AI.
See, that's great, and I appreciate that. I'm more of I like the improvisational. Can I react to things as they happen, and I will adapt just as much as I need to get through.
Yeah, and I think and my beef was they forced me into that a little too many times in this game. But like that AI was too easy to break, and it made a lot of that game probably easier than it was supposed to be. I don't know. And maybe the AI is better on harder difficulties. I'm going to have to jump in on something harder and maybe just look at it for a minute.
Give it a look.
Because I don't really care to play through it again. But, yeah. Okay. So anyway, I ended up, because of doing that and kind of like mapping out these areas and dealing with these guys in that way, I feel like I got a lot of story beats from,
which is interesting to me because
just hearing random dudes talking about you and about how you killed most of their gang already, and they're already trying to get revenge, or they're like, oh man, I don't want to be here anymore, I need to get out, I don't want to be here, but you're forced by your superior to keep going after this madman who's already killed half your crew, like. So it's interesting that they have some of it there, but it's like I caught it just kind of because I was being so methodical.
Which is funny because it's almost like saying, "Hey Dan, you played the game wrong, so you're missing critical story bits,"
which is disappointing.
Which is super disappointing.
It's disappointing.
Which we'll get to that later as well. Yeah. We briefly chatted, and I think
a little bit, and we're like, "Oh wow, okay,
yeah." Like
that's some pretty like they've either buried it because of the way that is presented in the way it's presented. It maybe buries it for some people.
Which is almost fine if they make it clear that this is the way you need to play. If they almost locked it down harder, so you really need to follow that, that would, or made it, I don't know.
I definitely felt like they earned more than maybe you would think on the surface if you do take a little bit more time. And that game, and then I went, I decided to check and see like do I want to try and get achievements in this game? Do I want to get these trophies? Because I like doing that if I can. Yeah. And looking into it, most of your trophies and stuff are not tied to like doing anything. It's about collecting and experiencing conversations.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like that game is more about delivering you the story through the setting that you are allowed to play around in, rather than, hey, get 5 headshots with this gun or blow up 2 guys at the same time with one of these bombs.
You are making the walking simulator argument
I am.
now, and
I
that
absolutely am.
That makes me sad.
I think that it was a walking simulator that they slapped some gameplay into.
Yeah, and it was before the time that walking simulators were
allowed.
I don't want to say allowed, but allowed.
Allowed,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and since all we have left is story, let's get into that.
Let's dig in.
And I love. I maybe don't want to read out the note that you have, but let's say you have it listed as a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
The story, like I said, I've harped on it quite a bit. Really very tropey. And I don't want to say that that's bad. I actually really enjoyed a lot of it, and I was glad at seeing. I was glad I was able to see a lot of these tropes and the foreshadowing that they kind of lay out for you.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then they pay it off. They paid it off most of the time.
Okay.
It's a lot of stuff you've already seen.
Okay. The note you have here is Walking Dead tropes.
Yeah, Walking Dead tropes for days. I mean,
and I guess,
and it's just kind of your standard
it's part and parcel with
post-apocalyptic zombie experience.
Yeah, it's kind of things you expect at this point, and you could argue that they have come from this game or this era of when this was all happening. But at the same time, it's like they weren't the first to do it either.
Like some of it was a little direct.
Yeah,
like it felt very Walking Dead.
Well, like it's almost like they're like, look, we don't have the time to develop this out. Here's this thing.
So that gang you were had a beef with.
Yeah,
I believe dude's name is David, and he's kind of a psycho.
Yeah,
he's kind of a psycho,
and they do a good job of portraying him as sane enough to kind of deal with people, but also.
Okay, so before we actually jump into this, do we want to grab anything from earlier on? Was there anything like earlier game that was notable to you? I find most of the interesting stuff to be in the later game.
I agree. I know that they kind of set up the other smuggling factions that are around in Boston. Lightly. I mean, like if that had carried through, like their networks,
they don't even dig into that.
Like if their networks had extended out, that would be interesting. But they do so little with it. It's just like, hey, here's your friend, she's gone. Hey, here's this. Here's these.
They
people.
do a better job with that in like Fallout. So
well, that's because you could go
if you want that. If you want that, go to Fallout.
Right. So
Last of Us is not a Fallout game.
No, it is not.
So yeah, I mean, earlier on, I guess like the only other notable thing that does happen is what's his name? Henry and Sam, black guys, brothers.
Okay, remind me here.
Okay, you run into these guys in Pittsburgh trying to get across the bridge out because it's okay. So Pittsburgh, when you get there, is run by a gang of thugs, and they have overthrown the government.
They've driven them out, essentially.
They've killed them all, driven them out, whatever the case may be. They've stolen a Humvee and a 50 cal mounted gun.
Yeah.
So that was an annoying part of this game as well. But they know that they have set up the trope of, hey, we're going to ambush people trying to come through this.
Is this when you're driving through and you get the car sequence?
Yeah, the first car.
Which that car sequence was good, but also I've seen Children of Men, and so
handled way better in Children of Men.
Oh, so good.
Clive Owen's amazing. But that part, so you get in there, and then you, and the latter part of that, when you're getting really close to getting across the bridge, you meet up with another group of the thugs call you tourists, like anybody who comes to the town,
right?
And they're killing tourists. They're stripping you of everything.
You find the piles of bags, the pile of clothes, and the shoes,
straight out of Walking Dead. And so. I mean, it's more tropes, still pretty good. I mean, it's your standard. Like, of course, you're going to see these different factions of people surviving and their different levels of morality and how they feel about it, and what they're willing to do to survive. And it kind of comes with the territory. You expect to see a lot of it, and they do it fairly well in this, showing you a few different ways of life.
Right.
And you run into these other tourists who have been trapped in the city, in the form of these two black brothers. Henry and Sam, and they got separated from their group in a failed ambush as well.
Okay,
and they're like, "Hey, we're trying to get to this radio tower outside of town where we're supposed to meet up with any of the survivors of our group at this certain time. It's like the next day." And so you start escaping the city with them, and you have to break out of the city. You have to get through the like thieves' wall, and it's a whole mess.
Yeah,
not a very fun sequence. there's kind of a cool
I am
part.
racking my brain trying to remember this, and I remember bits of it, but not
okay.
not all of
I
it.
mean, you're trying to escape. You have like
Okay,
there's a big corridor where they have a big spotlight, and they're just sniping clickers as they're like kind of walking through. And you have to sneak your way through, kill the guys on the spotlight, get over the wall, and try and get to the bridge itself. Turns out the bridge is like broken out. It's the first like bad experience you have with water. You have to jump off the bridge, and you get messed up. Ellie doesn't drown or anything. She gets yanked out by Henry and Sam, who have previously abandoned you.
Right.
When they couldn't get you over the wall fully. So you have to go do another whole maze thing. And
again,
get out of the city.
That's a video game trope.
It is very video game tropey, but they use it so heavy-handed in this and just too often. It's like everything. Every time you have a thing to do in this game, you have to then circumnavigate a maze.
Multiple things go wrong to make it worse.
Wrong, and it just constantly is happening. And sure, maybe that's how it would be. I don't know. But anyway, you get out, and the big part of this, actually one of my favorite segments of the game as well, is once you actually get out and you're almost to the radio tower, is you kind of come out in this neighborhood. And this is one of the like parts where I was just like, wow, this game looks really good. You kind of just look out, and it's just a neighborhood. Overgrown quite a bit, but kind of tranquil.
But you can see what civilization was still there.
It's just like, and then they just have so many little details of like bits of Americana, like toys, like just life, kind of there. And you see so much of it that just like most of the houses you go into have already been scavenged to the hilt, and there's nothing around, but like drawers are open, things are there, family pictures are still just sitting on things, and you're just like. And there are stories in each of those areas. Like each time you're going through, you're picking up notes and things that are like kind of just like a couple characters here and there.
Yeah.
And they feel the need to chronicle what's happening. And
your typical video game trope of the audio log, the BioShock,
audio logs and things like that.
I mean, but it's how you grow the world in a game like this.
And it's impressively done. It's all pretty well written. And it kind of, as you were progressing, you are reading their progressing story as well.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting. And I don't usually do this in games, but for whatever reason, this was like, you're always scavenging everything.
Right.
So I would just come across these pages and I'd pick them up and I'd read occasionally.
And I don't know that I did all of them. I don't know. I'd have to look and see how completionist I was. I don't think I was very, I'm
getting like tangent myself here.
Right.
But this part with Henry and Sam, you're just trying to get to this radio tower, and you come into this neighborhood. Beautiful, looks great. Really was an impressive part. But as soon as you drop down, like into the like part of the neighborhood, you drop off this little wall into this neighborhood. Bam! Sniper fire. Like you just start getting like sniped at, and you're like, oh snap! So everyone just bails behind a car, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try and get an angle on this guy, and he just starts like taunting you. Like, dude's just yelling. And he does send out a couple waves of guys at you. You have to kill them. You have to try and get an angle on the sniper. And once you do, you grab that sniper rifle.
And
you just start sniping waves, like wave after wave of zombies. And it was my favorite part of the whole game.
Because it's an actual action sequence.
It was very actiony, and it was great. You just have like a way, like you're trying to like help escort your guys like down to you while sniping zombies as they just kind of pour into this neighborhood. And it was very effective and felt good, felt better because it was a shooting sequence. It was like, this is a sniper rifle. It's mounted. It's up in this like top of this house, and you're just shooting the crap out of everybody. But in the whole like,
I think I do remember that sequence now.
In the scuffle, young black kid Sam gets bit.
Yeah,
he gets bit and changes. He turns overnight.
Yeah,
and then the brother, loses, like gets just so stricken with grief and having to kill his brother who turned, like then just turns the gun on himself, shoots himself, and
I mean that's
the end of that.
Completely done before,
but very very Walking Dead, and it's like delivery and the way you get that feeling of that just like sense of hopelessness and. It felt good. I mean, it was interesting, and then it's about the only other story beat that happens before you really kind of just dig into like end game.
Right. Okay.
Like that's the only thing that happens like before end game that really, I think like had any kind of impact.
Okay, and then that worked for
pretty
you.
standard. I mean, I don't know that it like worked for me, but. I don't really
it happened and you remembered it.
Yeah, it's like it's the one story beat that was like, okay, that's kind of impactful. Like,
right, and you spend time with those characters.
You do. You don't ever like them though. That's the other part. Like Ellie kind of befriends the kid a little bit.
Right,
picks up a little like transformer for him, and
This does sound from that.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
Because the brother's like, oh, we don't take anything we don't need. Like, you can't have a toy. You can't be a child. Like, you have to.
Yeah. Okay.
Man
this is all very. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Shades of.
This stuff is all come back.
It's all
no,
there,
I'm actually starting to remember this from the game.
Yeah. It's all there, and it's kind of like it's slice of life.
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of what this game really goes for. It's that cinematic. Like, it's just like wants to show you people like. And how they got through this, how they lived through this whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, other than that, like, and then once you're done in Pittsburgh, that's when you jump to Wyoming, where you do meet up with your brother. Oh yeah, I guess
is your brother in Wyoming? I thought your brother's in Washington.
Wyoming, it's Wyoming.
Oh, well, yeah, all right.
Yeah,
that makes sense because you're going to Utah.
Yeah, well,
because you
missed Wyoming, then to Colorado, then to Utah.
All right, yeah,
yeah,
but you that's right because you missed the meetup with the Fireflies, and they're like, just I guess come to Utah or something.
No, it's because every time you deliver her to where you're supposed to deliver her to, it's not the place you're supposed to deliver her to. Either the Fireflies are dead and gone, or that group has already moved on.
Right. Yeah.
That's so you're to like last resort. You need to meet up with your estranged brother, who you got like.
Right, which is I mean,
who had like you guys had butted heads at some point.
Right, because that's one of the good things they. I mean, I guess okay. I like the brothers' camp for a lot of reasons, but we should probably get into Ellie and Joel. Do you think and talk about them, or do you want to talk? Actually, briefly, okay. I like the brother, but as a preface to that, I like the brother and his camp because it's a very positive. And I guess I don't really go for zombie stuff because I like that at least a little bit of optimism. And the zombie trope has become all about hopelessness, like you were saying.
And that's very much what Last of Us is mostly about until you get to the brothers.
But I like this idea of like, look, we're going to be real with you. That's not how it's going to go. There is going to be all of those things that you see are going to exist, but there are going to be people who are going to be able to band together and be like, no, we are actually going to work for a greater good here. We are going to put ourselves aside to rebuild society. And that's a very optimist take of it. But without that, it's almost too desolate for me for like your zombie apocalypse stuff. It's at a point I'm just like, do people just like being depressed and that's why they like zombie stuff? Because since there's no sprinkling of any kind of hope or movement forward, it's just, no, it's all terrible. It's like the most nihilistic type of TV show.
That's why I love post-apocalyptic stuff. Absolutely,
And here's the thing is, and even
bring on the nihilism.
But the zombie stuff especially. Post-apocalyptic will find kind of strike that balance often, but the zombie genre specifically seems to be like, no, everyone's terrible.
Everyone's going to die, regardless.
Well, and everybody who's left is also the worst human beings ever. All the people who are left are terrible, generally including the protagonist, but not always. And that's why I like the brothers'
Sometimes.
I like just the feel was different. There was
I think it depends on what they're going for.
Right.
Like if it's a Romero style, it's everyone's going to die in the end.
Right.
Walking Dead is like everyone's already dead, but there's like glimpses of hope.
Has there been? Because like when I was in it was all very kind of like
Last Man on Earth.
Very like sarcastic.
Last Man on Earth is like they make you think that that's the case, but then in the end, like I guess it depends on which version you're looking at. Okay. Either you're the monster or you find the people who are like not infected and are still like maintaining civilization.
Oh, all right.
So there's a handful of like different ways.
But more and more, it's becoming the hopelessness genre.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, probably. I don't know. I don't
outside
consume a lot of current zombie stuff for the most part.
Well, I fell off of it for that reason. It's just like I watched the first 2 seasons of The Walking Dead, and I'm like, I think that's how I see how this is going to go.
We have kind of reached peak. We are way past peak zombie at this point. I mean, no one cares anymore.
Yeah.
Like, zombie stuff's kind of old hat.
I mean, you say that, but DayZ's still popular.
Is it that popular?
I didn't say that popular. I said it's still popular to some level.
Sure,
but I don't know. I mean,
there's a zombie mode in Battle Royale. Or in PUBG, I mean.
There's a zombie mode now?
There has been for a while.
Oh.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. Anyway.
I mean, it's hardly a zombie mode. It's just a bunch of people naked that, like, all they can do is melee.
Oh.
Against, like, a handful of people who can loot.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's zombie mode, though. I see what they're going for there. But yeah, so that's why. But I do find, I don't know. I like Joel. I like his character. I love especially when he's, I think it's Ellie that he's breaking down for, that he sees what's up. And she's like, how do you know that? It's like, because I've been on both sides of this before.
Yeah.
Just the kind of, that he has done everything he has to survive.
He is the grizzled veteran of this world.
Right.
And will survive at all costs.
Right. Even if he doesn't want to.
Yeah, even if he doesn't want to. Even though he has no hope left, like, the dude is just like given the bird.
Angry man, like old man too angry to die.
Exactly. Old man too. Great trope.
He's kind
great
of
trope, and they do it very well.
Well, and it's kind of funny if you think about. I mean, I don't know if you.
And it's Troy Baker doing the voice. So it's glorious.
He looks not terribly dissimilar from Logan in Logan, the new movie. And I think that's an apt kind of comparison.
Now, one thing I was kind of disappointed about. Maybe we'll like. I got some flavor stuff we'll throw on the end.
Okay.
We can keep talking about character. Right?
So for me, I liked Joel generally up until he just, and I know we kind of mentioned this briefly before.
Don't. Just keep going.
Well, let me actually set it up this way. I don't mind Ellie.
Okay.
What I found is it's the same thing you find in movies and things like this. Like, we need to write a convincing prepubescent or just barely prepubescent teenager. How do we do that? Well, we can't do that effectively. We're not good at that. So we're going to make her quirky. What's her quirk? Well, she's going to swear a lot.
She does swear like a sailor.
Okay.
She does swear like a sailor.
What else are we going to do?
I actually like her. I actually like her a lot.
See, but here's the thing. To me, it's like, okay, they don't know how to write a teenager, so they're going to make her swear a lot. Okay, and she's kind of flat. I mean, like she's kind of a flat character who swears a lot. At least that's how I remember it. I don't remember taking away anything from it.
Okay.
Though I will say this.
See, and I wonder how much of this is like colored just by the time that you've been away from
which
it.
I fully admit that could have been. I did really like the section that you play as Ellie.
Now, I know you weren't collecting a lot of stuff. Were you actually doing the conversations when they would pop up?
I know I was doing some of them when you could stop and just kind of chat. Yeah, because that's. I mean, it's kind of what you have. I would have.
It's true. It is what you have, and like if you're trying to play that game too much like a game and not as much of a
which may have been my problem.
It might be. It may be. I realized like early on, I was like, this is more walking simulator than game. I'm going to lean more into the walking simulator part.
And you do have the benefit of knowing what walking simulators are.
True.
When this game came out, that was not a thing.
I do have a perspective on this now that I think made it more enjoyable for me in that I was able to have that perspective and just look at it as, oh, this is that kind of a thing.
Right.
Whereas that kind of a thing didn't really exist back then. And maybe that's why it was so impactful for so many people at the time. It was like an accessible walking simulator that still had some gameplay in it.
Right. And I'm kind of like, oh no, I felt like I was absorbing what was here. It's like, no, yeah, this is great. I would like to move through it though, because
agreed.
I am a move through and think about it on my own time kind of thing.
I think about it as like it's the painful adolescence of, hey, how do we balance the walking simulator with the game?
Right. It's a narrative focused game, but we still feel like we have to put 12 hours worth of combat and puzzle solving in here.
And I think maybe since I kind of like came to terms with that somewhat early on, I think it was right as I was getting into like the dam with the brother and everything. I was like, oh, okay, this is like if I want to get anything out of this, I have to get out of it what I can get out of it by looking for it.
Yeah.
Rather than just like letting it like happen to me.
Which is interesting because I just had a thought because on kind of like blank slate character RPGs that let you just kind of wander around and absorb the world, I get hooked on those because I think I get enough where I can kind of do my own headcanon and kind of decide what person I am moving through the world. And I spend time thinking about it more. But when they're like,
this is just like they're handing all of that to you,
and
you have to just swallow it. It's just like, hey, this is it. It's like watching a movie,
right? Which I'm fine with. I'm fine with those as well. But when they're like, hey, here's everything you do, but you need to actually hang out in a corner and listen to these guys talk. Stop your gameplay and not just like, look, just give me a cutscene, please. Like, if you want to tell your story, please, by all means, I want you to tell your story. I like it. I like protagonists to have a voice. I like. Tell the story you want to tell. If you don't want to and you want to leave that to me, leave that to me. But this kind of in-betweenness that it seems to be doing where it's like, well, there's story, but you got to find most of the story. It's hidden. I'm like,
I don't know if it was most. I think I was able to.
Yeah, I'm being reductive.
Yeah.
This is true. But I'm making a point like it's just like, but when it feels like.
What's the point?
Yeah. If I'm missing important chunks of the story and not just side story stuff, maybe I hit an area where I'm like, well, I don't care about these people's story. I could move on and catch the next
one.
one.
You can just straight ignore any of it.
But it sounds like from what we were talking about that I might have actually missed important bits of story.
Potentially.
We're still not sure on that.
Yeah, we're still not positive. But I don't know. As far as Ellie goes, I feel like their whole relationship thing. I know I know we haven't actually brought it up yet, but since we are talking about Ellie and Joel, you said you kind of had a beef with the kind of transition from
after you control her, which is a great section.
Yes,
I really thought that was cool, but they jump ahead. They jump ahead in time, and you can see they give you a little bit of
Joel. The season's changed,
right? Joel has started to soften on her, And then I don't feel it's necessarily earned with how far he's come around on not only her, but for me, it came across as a mental break for him. Because you have him still being fairly grizzled and appreciative to, man, I sure think you and my daughter would be friends. Never mind your daughter would be like 25 at this point. Or 30, something at this point, and you would the age, like it's just like he's completely broken.
Nobody thinks about it that way though.
But here's the, for me,
I see where you're going with that. But like nobody thinks about their dead child as a 25-year-old version of themselves.
And that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
They're immortalized as that child forever because they never had a chance to get anywhere past that.
Right.
And it's very much like the trope of this is his replacement daughter, for lack of a softer way to say that.
In the moment, I'm just like, Joel's had a mental break. Well, and it feels like
he's
that
very actively fighting that for the entire game up to that. Up to okay, so big story part that we kind of glossed over when you control her.
Yes.
You control her because Joel almost dies.
Right.
It's one of these forced narrative points where you have to open a door, dude like comes to attack you, you fall off of a thing and get impaled on a piece of rebar.
Yeah.
And you're pretty messed up. You're
I think
almost
the impaling on rebar is also a trope, but let's
definitely in itself.
Anyway.
Yeah, is a trope. But and so you're wrecked. Like you can't even hardly walk.
Right.
So
they get you someplace else. She's taking care of you.
She's taking care of you.
Jumps to her hunting, which is great.
It cuts to you are now controlling Ellie as and you don't know what happened to you. Like it just cuts to Ellie in the woods with a bow and arrow, and she kills a rabbit. And then you have to, you see a deer, and you shoot the deer, and you hunt the deer.
And you're tracking down the deer.
And you're tracking the deer down. And it leads to a whole segment of, hey, that gang you guys wrecked in Colorado.
But you don't know it initially, but you find out
initially,
that you've started interacting with this gang.
You run into a couple dudes who want to trade you for your deer.
Yeah.
Because people are all hungry and starving, so they trade you some medicine.
Yeah.
Like they make good. They send off a guy, you keep one of the guys with you, and you kind of start to bond and learn about this guy and his community and everything. And then surprise, after you have done a whole fought off a horde of zombies with this guy, hey, guess what? Like we knew who you were the whole time. We understand you're the girl that was with the guy that murdered all of our crew.
And we want revenge.
We want him. We think you're just a girl. Like you're just a child.
Yeah.
Like we don't blame you for it. We blame him. We want him.
Yeah.
Where is he? And they attempt to kidnap you, and you run away. And
during
back.
that, Joel wakes up, and you take.
You get back to Joel with the drug.
Oh, you
with
get
the
him
medicine.
The
You give him medicine.
Run back out.
They track you.
Don't you? And she knows that, so she goes out and draws him off. Basically,
she hears them there because they start yelling. They're like, "Oh, where are you at, girl?" Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And you jump on the horse and you take off. And that's kind of an and you're still playing as her.
Right.
Joel's basically in a coma. He can't hardly move.
Right.
And is
freezing
freezing in a dirty mattress in a garage.
Right.
And it's at that point where, I don't want to jump back too much, but his turning to be more warm towards her doesn't just suddenly happen.
Right.
It kind of starts to happen when you're back in Wyoming talking to the brother.
I thought the Wyoming was after this segment, was it not?
No, because Wyoming sends you to Colorado.
Okay. See, this is all jumbled in my head. Okay.
The brother sends you to Colorado. So, because he's like, hey, you used to be a Firefly. Where do I need to take her? She's the cure.
Right.
Because you're ready to just dump her.
Right.
You're in Wyoming and you're just like, hey, I got to get rid of this.
Right.
I need to get this job done and I need to go my separate ways. And at that point, I kind of maybe infer this myself, but I think it's because he is struggling with not having, with having feelings towards her, as a daughter,
which is fine.
Yeah, but because she is quirky, she's cute, she likes to read comics and you're talking about all the nerdy stuff that she's into.
Yeah.
And
that's right. The comic book is one of those collectibles.
Yeah, you can actually collect the whole series of them. And so I think it's at that point where he's just ready to I need to get away from this because it's becoming more difficult for me to handle.
To be objective or whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
well, to be my old curmudgeon-y veteran self and not
And fair enough. And I'm not saying, and I want to say that it's totally unearned and that stuff. Though I might have said that exact phrase before.
Yeah.
But like I said, it feels like they jump through it. Like that could have been, I think, streamlined. Instead, they kind of are very soft on it and then jump way ahead.
And it may have been a problem with the time and place of that game. Just it's painful adolescence as a walking simulator.
Right.
Anyway, after that whole thing, she nurses you back to health. You end up fighting against this gang. It gets pretty hairy.
Right.
And lays right into the same trope that, hey, the leader of this gang is basically the governor from
The Walking Dead for shorthand purposes.
Yeah, shorthand purposes. He's basically the governor, and he's
he's chasing you around a restaurant.
He's trying to kill you, and
or worse,
gets a little rapey at one point.
Yeah,
and these guys are also like killing humans for food. It's very much just
right, and that's when you switch back to Joel. He wakes up.
Yeah, Joel
tracks to the village.
Yeah, realizes
saves
she's
her.
Gone, and
then she softens up towards him quite a lot as well after that scene as well.
Well, they kind of have a come to like, and in Wyoming when she steals the horse, she runs off. That's kind of where it really comes to a head.
Right.
It's like she realizes that he is trying to get rid of her in a very real way.
Right.
And she's just like, hey, man, like we've been through a lot together. Like I've lost everybody else in my life.
Right.
You are the only person who is still around. Like you are the only thing I have. And I don't want to lose that. And he kind of has to face it. Like he very like snaps back at her like, hey, I'm not your dad.
Yeah.
Like I'm not your father. I'm not, I don't want that. Like, it's not what I'm looking for. But I think very quickly there, he like kind of like comes down off of his like snap reaction.
Right. And I don't think it's like, and clear, since we're dealing with tropes.
Sorry,
like
I keep jumping back and forth all the time. I keep remembering.
And that's great because I'm not, but I just, the feeling I remember is not that it wouldn't happen and that it shouldn't have happened. It just felt maybe written poorly because it's just like, okay, here, and that stuff has been set up to happen. Now we're here. It already happened.
Well, with that encounter, like when you're in Wyoming, like that's one of the time jumps.
Yeah,
because this jumps seasonally.
Right, it does jump ahead quite a lot. It skips and jumps
because you're traveling across the United States on like foot or horseback or
occasionally car, but not a car. Really.
And nobody wants to see that. It kind of leans into that narrative aspect.
I understand why they're cutting that way, but it feels
so they have this. Yeah, they have that little.
But why are they putting the important, like those softening points for him?
That is straight dialogue that's part of the story. It's forced because you have to track her down after she steals the horse. Right.
But what I'm saying is like, yes, there are some of those things, but for me, it just felt such a sudden shift in his personality that it was like they could have probably smoothed that out. Now,
I mean, the things that you did cite are 2 seasons apart.
Okay,
like because they're in winter in Wyoming, and then it's like jump to spring in Colorado.
Right.
And then in when they get to Salt Lake,
right, and then
like summer.
Time has passed. I recognize that, but the fact that
each time jump they are far more friendly with each other. Like and it is gradual.
But I'm just saying that one where he's talking about how like his daughter and her would be friends, and all
that's not until almost you're at the hospital.
Right, I know, but that for me, for whatever reason, and for like I said, I admit,
that's the very end. That's after the hospital.
Maybe it is.
Yeah, where he's saying like, oh, you and my daughter would have been good friends. That is literally like seconds before credits roll.
That maybe that's where it was, and I'm like, he's completely lost his. He's completely snapped. Like I remember feeling like it felt like an old man having lost his mind. Not.
Oh, okay. If we're gonna talk about that, we should get there then.
Yeah, let's get to the hospital.
We should get there because
I think. Well, let's say this
in that context. Yeah, sure. Maybe he did a little bit. Like maybe he did crack.
Now that you're pointing it out, that it was at the end of like, okay, that actually might be more credible than I thought it was.
Yeah. Maybe. So the final thing that you find out is basically the only firefighters left that have scientists and they can do this operation or even look at it are in Utah at St. Mary's Hospital. Doesn't exist, but like a lot of the stuff that they show you in Salt Lake doesn't exist. So you get there and it's a very like, you're kind of nearing the end of the journey. There's a lot of that kind of talk as you're getting to the hospital. And finally a lot
of optimism. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. Yes. It's all rainbows and puppies.
Well, except as soon as you get there, she is very kind of down. You can tell she's like not her normal chipper.
Right, because she knows it's the end as well.
She knows it's the end. And I think she knows that it's the end. I think she knows that this will be the end of her.
You think so?
To some level,
okay,
for sure. Otherwise, why would she react the way she does? Like, she's very much like, I don't know about, like she's very trepidatious about the whole thing happening, and Joel is trying to like encourage her and like, hey, we're almost there. It's almost over. Then we'll go back home. I'll teach you how to play guitar. Blah blah blah.
Right.
It's very like we're friends and getting to know each other, and then of course. Leading up to the hospital, you have to have that sequence where they are separated, and they do it. They finally pay off the whole like I can't swim by drowning her.
Yeah.
And she's unconscious, and you're trying to resuscitate her, and the Fireflies show up, knock you out, and then you wake up later in a hospital bed with the chick who sent Ellie with you from the beginning.
Right.
And this is where we kind of like were.
We were talking about our different
earlier,
different perspectives before we started recording.
Yeah.
And said we should probably record this.
We should probably record it. So, what was your impression of this scene?
So, my impression of this scene, it was kind of funny because I mean, just minor tease. I guess I may have missed something. I guess, but I don't remember. I felt I was paying pretty good attention.
What was your first impression?
But my impression of the series of events is they say, "Hey." I don't know. They kind of lost me because I felt it felt kind of dumb and cheap because they're like, oh hey, sorry, we have to kill the girl. Anyway, have a good day. Was the reaction like we have to kill the girl for science? and Joel's like, no, you can't.
That's not cool, man.
And the doctor's like, no, it's cool. We're just gonna kill her for science, and walks off. And then you have they give you too much ready access to rifles because you then shoot up that hospital, save Ellie, and leave. And I'm like, I agree with this because I don't actually believe that doctor knows what he's doing. So I feel like you've done it. Like he's not really a doctor. He's just been lying this whole time. And he's like, well, someone's got to do something. So I feel Joel is completely justified because my reaction with him was, no, these people don't know what they're doing. This is not how any of this works. And I felt like that they hadn't done anything to set up that's how it would work. That makes sense. It didn't make sense at all. It was just like, it was a setup to make you want to murder every person in that hospital and save Ellie. And it worked for me. It worked for me.
I think that's still part of it. I think you totally do. I mean, the fact that they want to kill this little girl.
But the fact that it was like, for me, it came across as, no, that's bad science. That doesn't actually work that way.
Bad math.
Yeah, your math is wrong.
But then I didn't. I had very much understood what they were like.
Right, because you wanted to break that down because so other people.
Well, we'd have to verify completely. I don't know how widespread this is as a misunderstanding. What I gathered from that immediate conversation with Marlene, the Firefly that sent Ellie with you, who is also the friend of Ellie's mother, who used to be a Firefly,
right, as
well, and loves Ellie, and hates that this is whole situation's happening,
right.
Explains to you that the fungus. It's not that Ellie is immune to this fungus.
The fungus inside of her. The fungus
inside of her has mutated from what the regular one is, and it can be that she can just live with it.
Yeah.
And because it's a cordyceps fungus and it infests the brain, to get at that fungus, they have to go into her brain, which will kill her.
Right. Which is that. And see, that's that part is
and
is completely missed.
It's a critical misunderstanding.
But you were saying, but we were also talking, and you were saying you were going through notes and all these things.
I was, but I'm almost positive that dialogue happened as soon as you wake up.
Which I wonder if it was more dialogue than if you talk to her again, or I wonder how that works because
because that's all just cutscene.
Is it all
that's
just
cutscene?
Huh?
Yeah, that's
because I know that I was like,
yeah.
Oh, look, an assault rifle. I'm not reading anything. I'm shooting every person in this place.
And that doesn't happen for a bit because
I know, but I was angry.
Sure.
You
interesting.
You know it's going there though. You know that's where that ends.
Oh well, as soon as I got an assault rifle, I was like, oh, this game is completely different now.
Yeah.
Now it's just run and gun, shoot crap out of everybody.
Once they told me that, and I had that feeling, it was like, no, this is not how this works. And Joel seemed to agree with me. I'm like, they're going to give me a gun at some point, and then it's a bloodbath.
Well, I think at that point, his reaction to it is just like, oh no, this is just a little kid, and you're not even letting her make this choice,
right?
Because she was drowned and she's been unconscious. They brought her back, but they've kept her drugged the entire time.
So they don't have to talk to her.
So she can't make the decision at this point. It's being made for her.
Right. And I do partially remember that, but for whatever reason, the way that might have been just the red mist descended, but I remember thinking they're going to let me shoot these people, and I'm going to. I just knew, for whatever reason, I knew that's how that game was going to resolve.
Yeah, no, and it's very telegraphed.
I mean, from the moment they put me in the hospital bed and explained to me that she was going
as soon
to
as
die,
they're like, we're escorting you out, and if you try anything, we're just gonna shoot you.
Right, and which is why
you pull some John Wick moves and wreck the guard that's trying to escort you, and then just proceed to murder the rest of the soldiers in the hospital.
Right, exactly, and for me, that felt like it was coming. But so yes, this is.
But yes, in that from that point on, I did because I was pretty methodical about not dying, and I didn't want to. I didn't even know it was the end of the game, honestly.
I remember. Yes, I was texting. I should go get my phone. Because I was at work, so I couldn't respond.
I'm at the hospital in Salt Lake. Is that near the end? Turns out, totally was just the end of the game.
Which I should say. It's funny because I checked my phone because I was at work. I didn't have the opportunity to do it, and I pull out my phone that says, "I'm in the hospital. Is this near the end?" And then the next text is, "Oh, haha, it's over now."
It's like, oh, it was the end.
It was the end, or something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, so I doing my thing. I was just like, I don't know how much longer this is going to be. I'm going to keep playing like I've been playing.
Right.
And so I would just scavenge every area, and this one was a little different. It was a little more intense on the wave base. It just kept throwing dudes at you. But I was finding little tape recorders, more notes, journals, things like that from Marlene and from other people who
that was filling in the reasoning behind this.
Filling in some of like the emotional state behind some of it, and some of the doctor's notes about it, and that kind of a thing. So I may have had somewhat of a little bit more, but it wasn't as scientific as like them dropping the whole like, oh yeah, the fungus itself mutated. No, it was more just like, hey, we're trying to convince Marlene to give us the go ahead to do this operation because we understand it's rough and like the little girl's gonna have to die to save humanity. And here's the thing, it's kind of that like sacrifice one to save the many, kind of philosophy 101.
This is anecdotal evidence as anecdotal as it gets, and it's not not admissible in court. But I do remember shortly after reading it, looking at forums and stuff, and seeing people bitching about the same problem.
So other people had that same misunderstanding.
Yes, and I don't see anybody correcting them with a no, actually.
But it is the internet.
But it is the internet, and I will admit that.
And knee-jerk reactions rarely get approached.
And also, it's one of those things where I don't expect to have anybody. Well, actually, anyway, it's one of those things that some people like that person's a jackass. They don't understand. Don't bother responding. Or there's all these layers that could be going on. But the point is, like, I remember seeing other people having that issue.
Yeah, I now want to go back and play through that last leg again.
Yeah,
just to
and it could have
approach some of that.
I also could have just been like, I just want this game to be over and been tired and not been paying as much attention as it felt like it was. But I felt like I was.
It was that last leg, and
it is.
There are some tiring parts of that. I didn't. I didn't know it was the end. I was like, do I go somewhere else? I didn't.
I had some sense of it being the end.
Well, when I got to the hospital and realized how many guys were coming at me, I was like, oh, this is very end game. Like, they're throwing like heavily armored guys. I just got an assault rifle.
And lots of bullets.
This is totally the end game. Yeah. And so I don't know. Anyway, So you fight your way through wave of soldiers, basically.
This is not the be all and end all of discussions about this game, I guess.
No kidding. So you get to the end, where you burst into the operating room. Mm-hmm. There's a doctor, a couple nurses. Ellie's there on the bed. Doc's like, hey, like, back off. I'll cut you. He whips out his scalpel.
And you got a gun and you're like, sure, bro.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, he's like, don't come any closer. And you're just like, there's kind of, everything just kind of stops, like they kind of present it as if you will have a choice.
But you don't have a choice.
But you don't. So you shoot the doctor in the head and you pick up Ellie and you then sprint out of the hospital.
And it cuts. Then that's when it cuts ahead to him get back.
No. Because then you bust out into the parking garage where Marlene has headed you off.
Oh, okay.
And she's got a gun on you and she's like, come on, man. Like, you got to rethink this. This is the salvation for humanity. Like,
I may have thought during this point, like, no, I shot the doctor who was going to do this. I'm pretty sure it's over.
I'm pretty sure it's over. There's no way you can do it.
I may have thought that.
Yeah. Like, there's some loophole. There's some holes there.
Yeah.
But bullet holes. Some bullet holes for sure. And she's just kind of like trying to reason with you, and it's just like,
it ain't happening. Yeah.
And you're kind of like that. Like you said, the red mist has like taken over.
And she's like, what about people? And you're like, I don't care.
You're just no longer thinking about it at all. And you happen to have hidden a gun underneath Ellie, and you just shoot her.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, come on, just let me live. Like, don't worry about it. And he's like, hey, like, if I let you live, you're never going to stop coming after her. So bam. And you just end her real quick, execution style.
Yeah.
And steal a car and bounce out.
And she wakes up on the drive back. I do remember that.
As you're driving, and you're pretty far out of town.
And she knows that you're lying because you're like, and because
she senses it, like, because you come up with this like
turns out it was you.
It turns out like 12 other people were totally immune. They're like, they figured
the research is going to keep going.
Well, no, they figured out that like they can't. They can't reverse engineer
something like that, yeah.
And they're just going to stop trying. And they didn't even need
dead end of research. Yeah. Thanks for trying.
But she's sitting there in a hospital gown, super groggy from the anesthesia, and she's like, okay. Like, right. It sounds kind of janky to her.
Then that's when they cut to the part where I was talking about.
Yeah.
And you can tell she knows he's lying.
Cut forward to you're kind of like coming up on hometown at this point.
Or is she going back to the brother? With the brothers, I
think that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's because you don't ever actually go there, but they kind of show it to you.
Up on overlooking on the hill.
they show you the overlook, and that's where you're hiking to.
Yeah,
and it's a very short sequence. And she's kind of just like, you're making small talk, and it's Joel being.
I think you get one last dialogue option there. I think when she asks you one last time for real what happened,
right? And that's kind of the clincher. Like, and Joel's making this like small talk about how great it's going to be. They're going to be home, and she's going to learn how to swim and guitar and blah blah blah. And then they get up to the overlook and they see the town, and she basically just like breaks it down. She's like, "Real talk, Joel. Like, do you swear on me that everything you said was true?" Like,
yeah.
And it's a little bit more flowery than that. It's to talk about survivor's guilt and things. But he just says, "I swear." And
I think you have the option, but
there's no option.
There's no option.
There's never any option in the dialogue.
There's no. It's not.
There are no dialogue options in this game.
I am losing my mind here thinking that was okay.
There's zero dialogue options. It's like you just experience the dialogue.
Okay, fair enough.
Throughout, yeah,
that's better.
You never choose.
Tell the story.
Yeah,
that's
you
fine.
never choose anything. And so she like looks at him, kind of like, okay.
And she's going to just accept it at face value, even if she doesn't believe it.
Yeah, she just says, okay, and then credits roll.
That's right. It goes black screen on that. Yeah.
Yeah, credits roll. So, I mean, at that point, like, Joel is very much a different guy. He just had to kill a lot of people and friends and choose her over humanity.
Right.
So maybe he is a little kooky. Maybe he did lose his mind a little bit at that point and has just kind of accepted the whole, like, he's fully committed himself to, like...
This,
her.
Yeah.
So
reinvest of himself.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, like, you can look at it a few different ways.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't realize it was that far back that he starts talking about it. When he starts talking about his daughter, that I'm just like, I think he's kind of slipped.
Well, she keeps asking, and he's just like, she keeps asking about his past, and he's just like, nope. Don't talk about it. Don't ask. I'm not going to talk to you. And it's when they're in Wyoming at the brother's place, his wife shows her the picture of his daughter and him.
Yeah.
And so she knows. Brother tries to give the picture of Joel and his daughter back to him, and he's like, nope, I can't even think about this.
Right, he's doing the
he doesn't
basic,
even take it.
I've done too many terrible things to remember what that was kind of attitude.
He's just like, I'm so far past it.
He
doesn't even try and justify it. He's just like, I'm past.
Sorry,
I'm so far.
That's how I took it as we are past that. That's like
I refuse to deal with it. It's kind of more of what it is. It's more of a denial.
Okay,
kind of. Context.
Still grieving and
sure, or he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to deal with it. He doesn't. He just won't deal, and that's just kind of how it is. She ends up stealing that photo,
right,
and then later on gives it back to him,
right,
like on his birthday, right when you get into Salt Lake, she gives that picture back to him, and he's like, "Well, I just can't run from the past forever. Thanks." Like,
yeah,
and I don't know. There are a lot of these like narratively. Pretty interesting. Like the way they portray it, I found pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Even though it was couched in a lot of really boring and repetitive gameplay loops.
I'll say this: like
the story itself was okay.
Right. And it sounds like I have a lot of complaints. But then again, I'm the kind of person that that's just how my brain works. All in all, I liked the story. I thought it was above average at worst.
Sure. Yeah.
It was a good story, but I agree with you. The gameplay was. Bland to terrible, and it was a good game.
Yeah.
Like, it was fine. It was fine. Like, people ask me how it is, I say, Last of Us is fun.
And I do enjoy playing devil's advocate, especially when other people like have feelings about one thing one way.
Right.
I'll champion the other side. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know. But the thing is,
who knows?
It's a game that's in the past for me, so it's like I remember having issues, and I'm trying to remember what those issues are. But it's fine. As a game, it's fine.
Yeah, and having just come so freshly off of it, like I don't feel.
Well, that's why
I didn't end up feeling a lot of that. Like
right. That's kind of what I wanted to kind of just. That's why I was kind of the impetus trying. You need to get through that game.
We need to hash this out a little bit.
We need to hash this out because I'm curious. Because I wanted to go back and see
how it does it hold up. Well, I mean, it's an interesting like. Over time, how do these things hold up? Because a lot of people were like game of the year for this game,
which I don't understand. I understand.
What was it up against?
Ooh, that's a good question.
We'd have to look. That's not a conversation we're prepared to have.
But it is also interesting. Like, even though I felt like I was on point then, I am in a much different headspace now. So kind of talking it through, and
and the world's in a different headspace.
This is true.
So.
But you and I have a similar enough kind of sensibility,
sure,
that I can kind of get what you're saying, and like, well, I wonder if I would have caught that if I played it now, and it's
true.
It's kind of what if kind of scenario.
Yeah, who knows?
I'm not gonna because that gameplay is not worth it.
I'm not gonna screw you guys. I'm going home.
Right. So like I said, like in my head, that game is fine.
Yeah, it was fine, and I can appreciate it now in hindsight more so than I tried.
So was it worth it?
Was it worth it
For me to like just kind of get you through it?
Yeah, no, it was worth it. I actually did dip into the DLC a little bit as
Okay.
well. I think I got a good way through it. It's
prequel with
it is both prequel and happens during the main game. It's it starts off. It's basically the time period from when Joel gets impaled.
Yeah.
And you drag him off, and then you need to find a way to heal him. You need to find medical supplies to suture him up and drugs.
Is this one of the things she's flashing back to when she learned it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. You just start off in a mall in Colorado. It's like you went from the university where you get impaled to a mall, and like she stashes Joel and is going through this mall trying to find supplies. And then simultaneously flashing back to before
she met Joel.
Before she was bitten.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's before Joel, before
everything. All
Marlene,
right.
the works. It's the story of how she got bitten.
Okay.
And they do talk about it in the main story. So like she tells Joel that like she was with her best friend and they both got bit, and so she's just like, hey, let's just lose our minds together. And her friend does, and turns,
she doesn't,
and she ends up being fine, and she's just like losing, and so that's what I'm playing.
Survivor's guilt and all that stuff.
Yeah, even more so. So it's actually pretty well done. It is very much DLC though, in that it's not as populated with items and stuff. Like wandering through the mall, it's all pretty basic. It's almost like they're starting a new tutorial over for you.
Gotcha.
Even though you can go in and say like I don't want any tutorial,
right?
And I just finished the other part of the game, so just let me play. And it does. It lets you just jump right in, but there's just not a lot there.
Yeah, but they don't want to give you a bunch of stuff and have you pack ratting when they know you're not going to be carrying it
also,
very far.
the gameplay is a little bit different with Ellie than it is with Joel.
Okay.
As in, she's not as expertise. She can't craft all the same things Joel can.
Yeah.
She can't fight off zombies the same way Joel can. She does have that sweet switchblade, which is really handy, but you can't really like fight off. You can't shank guys. You can't.
I can't shiv.
Yeah, you can't shiv. You can't shiv with it.
That's unfortunate.
But every time you do grasp somebody that can die will, and it doesn't deplete. It doesn't have any duration, that kind of thing. But you can't craft the same stuff. You can't even craft shivs.
I mean, it makes sense.
And you can't. Yeah, and there's no like progression tree for her.
Right.
With the performance enhancing drugs that you collect throughout the game. It's very cinematic, the whole thing. It's even more than the regular game,
right? Because they're just like, hey, look, we had these assets, let's just
it's very cutesy when you're flashing back, because it's a story of like how you basically it's your friend Riley, this black girl that is friends with you, who disappeared for like over a month and a half.
Okay.
Suddenly she just shows back up in your like room, and she's like, hey, what's up? I'm back. Guess what? I'm also a Firefly now. And you're just like, what the heck, man? Like because Ellie is training to be one of the soldiers. Like she's doing military drills in the morning and everything. And then this Riley chick is like, hey, like I got a surprise for you. Let's get out of here. So you go to a nearby mall in Boston where you're exploring, like I guess it's kind of like you kind of visiting your old haunts from when you were like real tight with this girl.
Yeah.
And you're doing stuff in this mall, and it's just a lot of character development for Ellie as well. In that, like, it's kind of like showing you more of her quirkiness,
Gotcha,
to the nth degree,
right?
Pretty ham-fisted. It's like, hey, remember all this cool like stuff that we used to do?
We're going to talk about all the stuff we did.
We're going to talk about all the stuff we did, but it serves a purpose in that Riley's like, hey, yeah, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the Fireflies are making me leave and go to another town, and I'm going to have to abandon you here. Sorry.
Okay, and then you guys get bitten.
Yes. After more, there's like weird. It's really weird. It's kind of a trip. Like you end up playing this like faux arcade game. You turn the power back on in the mall.
Okay, and
you run into this arcade and weird mini game stuff there. And then there's like a super soaker fight where you're like hunting her through different parts of a store.
Okay,
and then zombies attack. And then that's where I'm at. I haven't actually got to the part where you get bit or whatever. So.
Okay, but you knew going in that's how.
Because it's in the main story. You know that's how it ends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And all the while, like each time you complete one kind of arc of one story or the other, it flashes back and it jumps back up to now you are you broke into the pharmacy in the mall and you're not really finding anything there, but there's a medical helicopter that crashed into the top of this mall. You need to get up there and get a thing, and it's that kind of a thing.
Okay.
So kind of more of the same, but it's just more of character development for Ellie. And,
I mean, yeah. And that's great. More power to him. Like I said, it comes for
I'll
free.
probably finish it. Yeah, it was free with the remaster, so I'm just like, I jumped in.
When I got done, I was just like,
what is
I don't
this?
care.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt about it, but you know.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't ready to jump right back into Monster Hunter, so I just jumped straight onto that.
I'm always ready to jump back into Monster Hunter. Well, that's kind of our thoughts and feelings on Last of Us. If you want to scream at us on how we've totally missed all the important stuff, or just me and how I should like this game more, or what we missed, let us know down there. Give us the heat. We're big boys. We can take it.
Yeah, please. Actually, we'd welcome. Like if we missed details or we're like interpreting something wrong, like I'd actually be curious, especially being so fresh off the game. Let me know if you are especially passionate about this game.
I have been warned. Some people were telling me they're like, "So you got something bad to say about Naughty Dog?" And it's like, and let's face it, we haven't really plumbed the depths of that because we haven't done. Was it Jack and Daxter or Uncharted?
I have a Jack and Daxter game. We'll have to dig into that.
We might have to dig into that because I've never played.
I think that's what. No, it's Ratchet and Clank. Never mind.
Different guys.
Which one's Jack and Daxter?
That's the other PS2 game. It's
unimportant.
Unimportant and not a topic for this.
Yeah, get back to us on this and let us know.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us, and we will catch you next time on The Backlog.
Catch you guys later. Sorry for my sick voice.